I want to talk more about the very beginning because it's always easy to, right now, like, oh, look at her, she's so successful. But I'm sure it was not always like that.
Let me tell you, it was very, very hard. Nobody really sees like your struggle. They see like, oh, what you put on Instagram and the nice photos, but they don't see, the process. I do believe that if you do want to be successful at something you're so passionate about, that is all you think about. My friends are like, oh, let's go party, let's go this. I was like, oh no, I want to paint. And it was just literally a free painting that was going into a restaurant. I got knocked out so many times. At first, it was very difficult knocking on these doors and getting rejected because I would get rejected. Not a lot of people are going to love your art. People would tell me like, oh, that's okay. Like there's so many artists, you're going to be broke. Yeah, it didn't really turn out that way.
Well, hello everyone, and welcome back to Boujee Best Friend Podcast. It is me, your host, Coco, aka Cornelia Slinsky, and I'm so grateful that you're spending your time with me because I know how valuable your time is, and I'm not taking it for granted. And whenever I'm bringing on guests to my show, I want to make sure they can provide value and just share their journey, and hopefully they're going to inspire you to follow your own dreams the way they followed theirs. So in today's episode, I had the pleasure of talking to Laura Chirino. Laura is actually a friend of mine here in Miami, and she is a super talented artist. And I wanted to bring her on so she can share her journey of literally turning her passion into a business. Because I know a lot of us are passionate about something and we are maybe creatives, but sometimes creative people don't know how to turn that passion into a business. So I wanted to have her on so she can kind of guide you through her journey and share her tips and tricks when it comes to being an artist and getting your name out there. She is such a sweetheart. I love her energy. I love her drive. I love her ambition. And she's such a good friend and supporter. So I hope you guys are going to enjoy this episode. And please make sure to leave a 5-star rating and review if you enjoy the show. Share it with a friend. You know the drill. Okay, before we get into the episode, you guys know that I love to read your reviews. Today we're going to read, let's see. I'm going to read a short and sweet review from Adele773. Great podcast, inspiring, positive, motivating, and fun. That's all I want to do for you guys. I want to inspire you. I want to leave a positive note in your life, and I want to motivate you to follow your dreams. And obviously a little fun because we got to have some fun in life. You can't take life too seriously. What my goal is with this episode is to motivate you to follow that passion, follow that dream, and turn it into your reality. Okay? Without further ado, let's hear from Laura. Laura Chirino. Is that how you pronounce your last name?
It's Chirino.
Laura Chirino. Welcome
Chirino.
I love it. Welcome to Boujee Best Friend Podcast.
Oh, what an honor to be here.
I absolutely had you on my list for a very long time because not only you are successful, you're so kind, and you're so willing to just like support your friends and share your wisdom. And I really, really respect that about you. And I'm dying to hear your entire story and how everything even started, even though we know each other in real life and we're friends, but I don't think we ever really discussed how your journey with art started. So again, thank you for being here. And let's just start with the basics, where you're from, where you grew up, and so my audience gets to know you.
Well, thank you for having me. I know that we've been wanting to do this for quite some time, but we've both been very busy, which is a good thing. Yeah. So a little bit about myself. I was actually born in Cuba. Not a lot of people know this. I came when I was 3. I've always been into art, but it's not something that I wanted to like pursue. And just because, they always say like, oh, artists, you're starving artist, and I kind of wanted to go like against that. I wanted to change it around. I'm like, no, I'm not going to be a starving artist. Yeah. So little by little, I like just started painting, and long story short, it's a long story. I did an art festival and I sold like all my pieces. I had no tents. Like everybody looked extremely professional. I had no tents. It was just like a little stick with a canvas, and I'm like, all right, fake it till you make it. So, people started coming up to me and they're like, how long have you been painting for? I'm like, oh, like 6 years. Mind you, my tents are like, everything's like falling apart. And I just had like the canvas. But I'm like, the mindset still powerful. I'm like, I'm going to sell all my paintings this festival. And I did. I sold like my first art piece for like $400. And I was so excited. I remember calling my mom and I'm like, Mom, I just sold my painting. She's like, yeah. Like at work, she's like, yeah, she sold another one. Telling all the girls in like the salon, like she sold another one. Another one. And it was just like very like motivating. And I would see how the other artists would sell. And, you know, it was just like a booster, right? So it was Sunday and I sold all my paintings. I made like $3,000 that weekend. And I'm like, oh my God, imagine if I start doing this like constantly, right? So I did. I started painting little by little, looking for events and just getting my name out there, giving out paintings for free. I got rejected so many times. So many people were like, oh no, thank you, we're good. And it's funny because now like those people are like, oh my God, can I have a piece? Like I want one of your paintings.
That's how it always happens. But I want to back up a little bit. So you were brought up in Cuba or you were just born there and then you lived in Miami. Tell me more about your background.
So I came when I was 3. So I was born in Cuba, but I came when I was 3. And then I lived in Miami my whole entire life.
And you went to school here or like, what was your like, how did you grow up?
So I went to Pace High School, which is like a private school. And then from there, I went to FIU. Not a lot of people know this. I was actually a 2nd grade teacher for like a whole year.
Oh, wow.
And I realized, yeah. So I got my
I'm
degree.
just going to learn so much about you in this
I
conversation.
know,
so I'm going to dig through everything.
And we're friends. So it's like, surprise. So my mom, you know, like Cuban parents and Latin parents are like, I need a degree, you know? So I'm like, okay, here's your degree. I don't want to be a teacher. It's not for me. I respect it. I think it's, you know, it's an amazing job. But it's not for me, you know, it would give me anxiety. So I would go home and paint. And then that's when I kind of like started realizing like, okay, I don't want to be a teacher. Like I want to be a very successful known artist. So I just, you know, spent all my energy on that. But yeah, I was a teacher for a whole entire year and I taught 2nd grade.
And when you say you wanted to be an artist, how did you realize that? I mean, we all know people are always saying, oh, struggling artist. And also when I started with my makeup artistry and I told my parents I want to do this full time, they were like, why don't you just get a real job and do this on the side? And it was this idea for the longest time that you just have to work in an office for somebody else in order to succeed. So how did you... So you started painting, you were painting at home just for yourself, or you were like, was that like your thing? Were you known for painting? Were you known as like the artist girl, or how did that work when you were growing up?
So it was more like I've always been, and my dad used to be an art teacher in Cuba. So I guess it kind of like runs in the family. And I would just do that as a hobby. It started as a hobby. Like, you know, once I got out of teaching, I would go home and it would like relax me. I'll get into like my little art studio. My mom wanted to kill me when I was little because I painted the whole entire walls. So that was it. Yeah. That's where it all started.
That's how it starts.
She's like, that's how it starts. And everywhere I would go, I'll take like a notebook and like start painting in every single place. Like I remember I would even paint like on napkins, wherever my mom would take me. So it's something that's always been inside of me. I just never really was able to showcase it. I didn't know how to. I was more like introverted, believe it or not. And now I'm just like crazy butterfly. But yeah, that's kind of how it started, little by little. And then I just, you know, wanted to showcase it.
So this exhibit that you mentioned where you sold your first painting, tell me more about that. So how did you, first off, for those who are listening who might not know your work, what kind of art do you do? What kind of paintings? How would you describe your style?
So it's a little bit of like modern abstract. For example, like my most popular piece right now is called Hidden Names, which
I love those.
Thank you. So the family gets to tell me all their names, special words, specific dates that are important to them. And then I kind of just like combined it all together. So it becomes like a conversation piece and it becomes like a game. And, you know, you come over and all the family is like, oh my God, where's my name? And it just becomes like a modern abstract painting, but then meaningful at the same time. So modern abstract.
It kind of reminds me of those, you know, now with the new year, when people, I mean, I even posted one of these, like when you put a bunch of letters and then like, what's the first few words that you see? It kind of reminds me of that. Yeah. I mean, obviously yours is like actual real art. So is that what you started?
No, but you're right.
When did you start with that? When did you start with these specific pieces?
So there was a client that wanted like something abstract. She just wanted like a white and black like lines. She kind of sent me an idea from like that she researched. And then she's like, can you make this, but like more fun and maybe just like throw my names in there. Her name's Mara. It was like my first like client for that process of like the hidden names, but it was like very messy. So then I'm like, okay, imagine doing something more like perfect, like lined, right? So then I did that for another client. I told him the idea about it and then he loved it. And then it kind of like became a trend. And then I just had like one of my biggest client, EJ Manuel, retired NFL player. I just did his whole home, which Eileen from Designing Miami also did his home. So I just did those paintings for him with like a marble background and they loved it. So it's definitely my most like popular piece for sure. So that's
I love it. I love it. I love it. And I'm going to share a bunch of your paintings on my Boujee Best Friend page. For those who are listening, they can check it out. And obviously I'm going to share it with our socials later on. But I want to talk more about the very beginning, because it's always easy to, you know, right now, like, oh, look at her, she's so successful. But I'm sure it was not always like that. And I'm sure, you know, there was a lot of self-doubt involved. And how many years ago was when you started actually pursuing this full time?
So it's been 8 years already. It's been 8 years since I started showcasing from that festival. But let me tell you, it was very, very hard. I remember my parents, you know, like me crying like at 3 a.m., like, because I didn't want to give up on my dreams. And I get emotional as talking about it because like nobody really sees like your struggle. They see like, oh, you know, what you put on Instagram and the nice photos, but they don't see, you know, the process, because I do believe that if you do want to be successful at something you're so passionate about, that is all you think about. That is your every single day motivation. Everything you think about should be that. So that's how I saw it. You know, like my friends are like, oh, let's go party. Let's go this. I was like, oh no, I want to paint. And it was just literally a free painting that was going into a restaurant. And that's kind of like how I started the process, but I got knocked out so many times. You know, people would tell me like, oh, you know, that's okay. Like there's so many artists, you're going to be broke. Yeah, it didn't really turn out that way, but it was very difficult. Like 3 a.m. crying, like, oh my God, I have to wake up. And it was definitely a process for sure.
So how did you learn how to paint somewhere? I mean, did you go do some kind of classes or something like that? I don't know much about artists. I mean, I don't know much about art. How do you actually become an artist? So I'm like interviewing you for the audience, but I'm also literally trying to learn how do you, okay, so you have this amazing talent and you are painting at home, you're giving your paintings to your friends and you're giving them, how did you you said you gave a painting to a restaurant. Did you just like call up a restaurant and be like, hey, I want to give you my painting? Or how did you like start spreading the word around you?
So as crazy as it sounds, like for any artist out there, right? You have to put in the work. I do believe that there are many talented artists out there, but you need to put in the work. Like Instagram is not it. Social media is not it. You actually have to knock, put in the work and be like, hey, this is my portfolio. I'm an upcoming artist. I would love to display one of my paintings for free in your restaurant, office, whatever it may be. And if it sells, I would give you a percentage. So that's it, that easy. But it's not that easy because you have to put in the work. Like I said, you can't be shy. You have to get out of your comfort zone. At first, it was very difficult knocking on these doors and getting rejected because I would get rejected. Not a lot of people are going to love your art, and you need to be okay with that. And you can't take it personal. So, you know, little by little, like I went to a Cuban restaurant, right? This was actually the first restaurant I went to. And I noticed that they were very Latin. So I'm like, I'm going to do a rooster. And I literally did this rooster for that restaurant without telling them, right? And you're like thinking, maybe what if you get rejected, right? So they loved it and they ended up buying the painting for like $2,000. They didn't even, we want it. Like, you're not going to put it for free. We actually want it. And I was like, okay. When they asked me how much, I was like, 2,000. And they're like,
did you just like come up with that on the spot?
I was like, on the spot. I'm like, I thought I was going to give it out for free, thinking to display it. And mind you, I was just like 2 years in, you know? So, and now I actually go to that restaurant and I'm like, oh my God, it's still there. And it's like one of my old pieces. Yeah. So to go back to the question that you asked me, like, how did I start? Like the process, my art has completely, it's changed. It's changed its ways because when I first started, I was painting very abstract to the point that you couldn't tell what it was, but it was more like my feelings on that canvas. Now I paint my feelings plus the client's story on the canvas. So I get to know the client. I interact with the client. I get a sense of their energy, their vibe, what they want. And I combined my art, and they trust me because they love my art. So I do like a mini sketch on paper, and then they're like, okay, we love it. We trust you. I have clients that are just like, do whatever you want. We love your art.
Yeah.
You know? So
I remember when I was starting with my makeup artistry, I never really knew how to, I had a big issue with selling myself, but not in a way like I knew who I was and I believed in myself, but I didn't know how to put a price on it because art is so abstract. Like somebody's going to pay $10,000 for your painting and somebody's going to say, oh, this is not worth even $100. So how do you, for those who are listening who are artists and they're just kind of confused how much to price their art or how to even find clients besides like knocking on doors? So let's say you find a client and you have this art piece. I mean, you said on the spot, $2,000. Like, how do you even define how much your art is worth?
Okay, so I feel like it also has a lot to do with the process, right? Like the exposure, your clientele, how many years you've done it. So let's say if you're an artist that just, obviously we all know that our art is worth a lot because it's dedicated our time, how much time we've dedicated to this piece. You know, a lot of paintings they take a lot longer than other pieces. So that's already an idea. Exposure, connections. If you look at your audience, let's say if you have 50 followers and you have 2 paintings on your Instagram, it's really hard for you, not that you can, but it's really hard for you to showcase your portfolio and be like, hey, I'm going to sell my paintings at $5,000. What's your background? Like what, you know? So it has to do a lot, I believe, with the clientele, the years of experience, the people, and the quality of your art. How many years of art you've been doing. When I first started 7 years ago, I was selling paintings at $400 because I knew that I just needed to get my name out there. I just sold my last piece, and this is not to brag. This is actually like to motivate people, right? Now I just sold my last piece at 10K.
Yeah.
You know, and it's crazy, but you know, I was on billboards, I was on TV, but it's taken me, I was artist of the year last year. So it's taken me a really long time, and the connections and the events and the people and the talking and the networking to be able to sell my paintings at that price. Patience, I tell everybody, patience is key, and consistency too. Because you can't just be an artist and be like, okay, I'm going to paint today and I have 2 followers and I have 1 post and I'm going to sell my painting at 10,000. I mean, hey,
if you do that, you know, congrats, but
if
like,
you do
it's
that,
probably not going to happen. And you know,
it's a process.
I really love that you literally just said how much financially, like how much you were charging then, how much you sold it now, because I feel like women are ashamed to talk about money because we were kind of conditioned to not talk about money because that was like not, I don't know. I never used to know how to talk about money. And now I'm literally pushing myself even sometimes to discuss money with my friends, because in the business world, it's all about money. I mean, obviously it's not all about money in real life, but in business, people do business to make money. So there's nothing shameful in charging what you're worth and what your work is worth. So for those who are, so let's say, okay, somebody is an artist, they are doing the work, they are, you know, putting themselves out there. How did you, was there a moment for you that you were like, okay, this is gonna change everything for me? Can you remember a moment that you were like, wow, this is really going somewhere?
Absolutely. So I would say last year around March, when I got the news that I was selected to be the Artist of the Year for Carnival Miami, which has always been a goal of mine. Right there, automatic boost. I was on TV, I was being interviewed, I was getting so many podcasts, and that really did help me out. I was in a music video with a Cuban artist, and you know, it just started. The hard part is keeping that momentum, but that was definitely the breaking point for me, where I realized, oh wow, like I'm gonna blow up. And then that's it. From there, it was, so I would say March of last year, but after like, let's say 6-7 years of hard work and just, you know, getting out there.
Tell me about this award again. How did that happen?
Okay, so Carnival Miami in Coral Gables, it's a festival. It's one of the largest festivals that they do every single year. And then that year, they select one artist to be like the local artist of the year. And I was so thankful to be able to be that artist. And, it was just such an honor. So they select you, you paint the main, I'm sorry to interrupt, that you paint this painting that is describing you, your Latin roots, and a little bit of like the Kiwanis, which is their team. So I combined all of that together, and I did like a rooster with a cigar and a palm tree and monkeys and dominoes, kind of representing my Cuban roots. And then they print it and they put it all over Coral Gables and on TV, and it was awesome. It was a cool experience.
How did you say that your style changed throughout the years? You said you started with really abstract, which were like basically your feelings on the canvas. How did you kind of make that more streamlined to what it is today?
That's actually no one's ever asked me that. So I think that, by getting more clients, because I first started painting for myself and I would sell paintings, and then clients started requesting like animals, and I'm like, oh my God, like animals. Okay, fine. But then I'm like, how do I turn this like hobby into a business? I gotta paint animals, right? So I started, getting out of my comfort zone, and then I posted it, and then people were like, okay, now I want a cat, I want a dog, I want a monkey. I was like, oh, the zoo, perfect. But it was paying off. It was paying off. So I'm like, okay, so you want, and they started getting very creative. I'm talking about like a rooster with a hat and a guitar. I'm like, all right, you're really testing me. So I got out of my comfort zone, and I'm like, okay, so the more stuff they would add, the more I would charge. And they're like, okay, no more hats, no more. So that's it. That's kind of how it.
Yeah, you just mentioned hats. Tell me about that, because you also, you don't paint just on canvas. You paint on objects, I would say.
On Panama hats. Yeah,
okay,
yeah.
Tell me how did that start?
Yeah. So, Miami, it's all about fashion. So I started painting. I went to Colombia, and I saw that they were painting like on hats, and I got inspired. They did like an LC hat for me, and then I posted it, and then a client was like, oh my God, I want one. And I'm like, oh, you got to come to Colombia. And I'm like, wait, hold on. Business mindset. So I'm like, how can I turn this into like a business too? So then I started doing research and homework, and I wanted obviously like the best quality hats. And, I did at first, I was like, I'm going to be honest, these hats were like not that great. They would get wet and they would die. So I was like, okay, no, I can't sell this. So then I started doing more research, and then I started painting on pets, and then just because girls love fashion, so they wanted custom hats. So now I sell Panama hats with an adjustable band inside, waterproof, and it just kind of blew up. And that, to be honest with you, it helped me a lot, as it would attract people to my page, and they're like, oh, you also do paintings. So it was more like a fashion statement that would attract people to doing canvases. And then they would go to my page and they're like, oh, I want a painting. But realistically, now that we talk about it, the hats kind of gave me even more exposure. Then I started doing jean jackets. So it was all more like merch, like LC merch.
Yeah. So
and then I saw girls at the airport with my jackets. It was awesome.
That's the best moment. I know when I had my first merch drop, when I saw a girl on the street wearing my hat, it was late at night here in Miami, and I started running towards her, and I was with Wes, and he was like, yo, you can't just like run to a stranger in the middle of the night. She's going to think you're crazy. I was like, I know, but she's wearing my hat. Look at her. And then I just took a photo from the back. And then you just see that like it's so special when you see your work out there. So tell me, when you were, what would you say is the biggest challenge you faced as an artist? I mean, I know that's like a broad question, but
no.
Is there
it's a good question?
Yeah, tell me.
Getting rejected, in the beginning, and still I still, there's some clients that, I give them a price, and I'm not going to lower my price just because, not everybody, my art's not for everyone. And, that's been something that has been difficult. Like when I give them a price on a certain painting, they're like, oh, let me talk to my husband. That's already an automatic no, sometimes, but it's actually helped me realize like the value and the quality. Cause it's true. My paintings take 2 to 3 weeks. They take a while. So that's kind of like, I would say that mainly like getting rejected just because, like you give them a certain price, and not lowering. I think it's really important not to lower your standards, I would say, your quality of work, just because, you lose that client thinking, okay, fine, I just lost like, a certain amount just because that client said no, but it's okay. Cause then there will be someone that will be able to like afford your piece. That's kind of like how I see it.
Can you walk us through your process? So let's say I'm a client and maybe I have, okay, let's just pretend I have an idea of what I want. So you obviously have a conversation, you get to know them. How does it work? Like walk me through the entire process.
So everyone I interact with, I make sure that they know I'm an artist. So whatever conversation we have, etc., like I make a note, and they're like, oh, let me get your Instagram, let me get your handle. I'm going to show my husband. So, or sometimes they just mainly on Instagram. I would say 85% of my clientele is from Instagram. They reach out to me. They're like, hey, Laura, I love your hidden names painting, the most popular piece. How can we move forward? I'm like, okay, so we need 15 to 20 names. Send me a photo of where you would like to place the wall so I can help you with size. Sometimes I go to the client's house if it's easier for them. If not, they'll just get up tape. I tell them, I already can tell by the wall. I'm like, measure it. That's a 36 by 48. They're like, trust me, it's going to look good. They're like, how do you know by the wall? They measure it with like duct tape, send me a photo, and then we're like, okay, perfect. Then I give them pricing, they pay a deposit, and then I tell them 2 to 3 weeks, and then boom, then they have their piece. I deliver it and we install it. I have a team that we go together and we install it. So that's the process for like painting.
But tell me about, I'm like just digging deep here. So you set everything with the client and then you come home, and how do you actually do the work? Like, do you sketch it out? Yeah. Do you sketch it out first and then you like, I really don't know anything about it. So I'm just like curious.
Yeah, no. So I'm glad you asked. So for example, like I sketch it out for them. They send me the names and then for example, hidden names, right? They'll tell me like all the names and then I combine them together. So like, let's say power, I would sketch out power and then I connect it with persistence, let's say confidence, special date. And I kind of connect it together and then I send it out to them. Once the client approves it, then I move forward with the painting. Sometimes they're like, oh, I don't want the names there. So once I keep redoing their sketch until they approve. Once they approve, and we move forward with the painting. It's pretty easy. I feel like the most difficult part is like getting the actual size. Cause sometimes, it's too small. It's, they're like, no, I want it smaller. And then when I get the painting, put it inside, they're like, yeah, we should have gone bigger. I'm like, I told you, but it's okay, but that's kind of the process, how it works.
So when you were starting with your art and you were, taking it seriously, how did you know what products you need to use?
So for example, when I first started, painting, I realized that the quality of the canvases that I was using at first were not as great. So then I started doing more research online, like what's the best quality, what's the best resin. At first I would use resin that, wasn't as great.
What does resin mean?
Obviously. So resin is a liquid that you mix that I put on top of the canvas to make it like a clear glass. So I mix 2 products together and then I pour it at the end once I'm done with the painting. And then it turns the painting into like, basically like a gloss, like it looks like glass. Like the painting is behind glass. So I was using not as great product. Like I was using like acrylic. Now I use golden paint, which is like the top paint, like very nice, pricey, very pricey, quality paint. Pricey. It's so worth it because you want to give out, let's mention pricey, but you want to give out the best quality out there, so it lasts your paint. All my paintings have lasted. I have clients that have had paintings for like 9 years and it still looks the same. So I think materials are very important.
Is there any specific brands or any specific brushes that you use that you can share?
Brushes, I'm honestly, if I touch them and I know that like they're soft, that works. I don't have a specific brand. For paint, I highly recommend Golden. And for resin, if artists want to resin their paintings, art resin. Look at me spilling all my secret juices. Art resin.
They
Art
can
resin
have
is
your
definitely
recipe,
it.
but they don't have your sauce. No, or no. What was that? Yeah, I think that's a saying.
No?
They can steal your
Yeah.
recipe, but they won't steal your
Recipe.
sauce. Yeah.
That's true. No, and honestly, I love to help artists. I have a few artists that reach out to me and they're like, you're so motivating. And, one of the I'm not going to say her name, but she's so sweet. And I invited her to the studio and she's like, you're so sweet. Thank you so much for helping me out. And she's like, I look up to you. And, I was just giving her like some tips and pointers, and she spent the day with me in the studio. And she's like, that's so motivating. And I think it's important to give and do good without expecting, because, that multiplies, in other ways.
Is there somebody that you look up to, any type of artist that you were like, I really admire their work? It doesn't have to be the style of work. It doesn't have to be the same aesthetic, but is there somebody that you were like, wow, I would really, who inspires you actually? I think that's the better question.
Oof, I don't want to sound like confidence, but I'm like, I have a lot of artists that I love their work. Like Mijares is one of them. I really like his work. Brito, to be honest with you, when I was little, I loved color because my paintings are very colorful. So it started with Brito. He's very known worldwide. And, I really liked his art back then. Now some things have changed, but I really like, his style of art, how colorful it is, the black outline. So I feel like that was like my motivation when I first started years ago. I would say Brito for sure.
What would you say made you stand out from other artists? Would you say it was the style of paintings? Would you say that your confidence? Like, what do you think is something that people maybe should work on if they want to kind of get to that next level and make their hobby into an actual career?
Absolutely. I think that getting out of your comfort zone, a lot of artists that I've noticed, because I interact with a lot of artists, they're very introverted, right? They're very quiet, shy. I think it's really important to get out of your comfort zone. And even if it's something that you don't want to do, go for it. Like, don't think about it, just go for it. Go talk to that person, go DM that client, reach out, don't think about it, just do. So I think that's something that has helped me a lot, because at first I was very shy, believe it or not. And
I cannot imagine you shy, honestly. I love you the way you are, but I can't imagine you being shy.
Yeah, I know. But I was very shy, and I got out of my comfort zone, and I remember having a conversation with my mom. My mom's like, do it, go out there, do it. And she's always, my mom, I call her Superwoman. She's always been very like feminist and girl power, and you gotta go out there. And, I would always tell her, I'm like, there's so many men that are artists. And she's like, exactly. That's why you need to be the very known, women artist, and she always motivated and pushed me to like my limits. So I think that that's something that, getting out of your comfort zone definitely is a must to be able to get out there.
And I love what you said, that you if somebody doesn't want to pay the price that you said, or maybe they don't like your art, you can't really take it personally, because everybody has their own taste, their own opinions, and like, we don't even like everybody. So why would everybody, why is everybody supposed to like what we are doing? So I know it's very hard to not take it personal, because even for me today, if I'm trying to work with a brand and they don't want to work with me or something, I'm like, but I just always think like, it's against me, but maybe right now for that moment, it's just not meant to be. And I don't want to sound like a Hallmark card, but like, what's meant for you is not going to pass you by. So like,
absolutely,
that client was obviously not supposed to be the client that you were supposed to work with.
And you have to be okay with it. You have to be okay with it. And I feel like that was kind of the hard part for me, like accepting rejection, but better things turn out,
What would you say for artists who maybe they're really talented, but they don't know which way they should go? So maybe they can paint whatever, like they can paint abstract, they can paint simple. Like, honestly, my brother is a really talented artist, but he doesn't do it at all as a profession. He just does it for fun at home. He was actually painting his entire childhood, but then in the pandemic, he was buying all these I'm actually going to send you photos. I'm really curious what you're going to think.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah, but he was like, yeah, I'm never gonna, I mean, he lives in Croatia. So he was like, I'm never gonna, art is not really big in Croatia. And I don't even know where I would start, because he can paint from abstract to, I'll send you photos, but he was like, I don't even know which way I would go. So if somebody is like just a talented artist and they are talented in multiple ways, how can they decide, or how can they kind of see which way they should go?
Okay, so I would say definitely start with a portfolio, start building a clientele, start with building your Instagram, start actually putting, photos on your portfolio and going to a lot of networks and just talking to people. Get your Instagram. Every single person that you interact with, every single person, just tell them like, oh, look, I'm an artist. I look at my artwork. I start a conversation. Be like, oh, add me. I don't even give people my number. I'm like, add me on Instagram. Add me on Instagram. And that's how you start building clientele, and definitely going to a lot of networks. Our friend, Kat, she has helped me a lot. Like Kat's always, we love her so much. We're always going to, she gets out there. She gets out there and she builds clientele. Man, like, Kat is such a motivation, she's always hustling. She's always at events. You see her, she's like exhausted, but she's always out there. She's putting in the work. You need to put in the work. Weekends, go to events, look online, like our events in Miami, dedicate time, take your portfolio, be like, hi, I'm an artist here in Miami. It's word of mouth. It's just getting out there, putting in the work. So I would say that's, a way to start your client, get a website, add photos, talk to people, go to events, make connections. We're tired. We're all tired, but excuses are for the weak. You got to put in the work. You got to get out there. Anything and everything is possible.
When you started with your art, what did people around you say? Because whenever somebody's doing something different, people are, they have maybe their weird comments. Like, did you ever have something like that in your life personally?
So I don't really like much to talk about it, but it's a motivation for everyone out there, right? When I was going through that phase of like breaking up with my previous relationship, I remember, oh, you're not going to get anywhere. You're not going to be anybody. You're not going to get to where you want to be. You're no one without me. That narcissist energy, right? So it kind of like just gave me the biggest boost of my life. And I ended up, I'm like, okay, stayed quiet. I don't fight fire with fire. So I'm like, I just stayed quiet, keep it professional. I rebranded my whole entire business. It went from LC Original Paintings to Art by Chirino. When I did that transition, I have a studio in Brickell. I did it all on my own. I have a home in Midtown. I'm the happiest I've ever been. And sometimes we need to go through those stages. It sucks, but we need to go through those difficult moments. I wouldn't say it wasn't that difficult, but in general, that being rejected by someone that you loved, it really opened my eyes, because I really wanted to prove to myself and everyone that you can do it. You don't need a man to be able to be successful. You don't need anybody. You may want someone, but you don't need them. So for me, I just wanted to prove to myself that I can do it. And I did. Now I have a beautiful art gallery with water view front that I did by myself. I have 2 employees that work with me full time. And everything just blew up into just magical. And it was smooth, easy. But, I went through that stage of being rejected, that, you're nobody without me. You can't do this. And, the men, whatever. And I'm in the best stage of my life right now. And I became Artist of the Year, and everything just kind of like blessings on blessings. So, if someone puts you down, let that just be a motivation to prove them wrong and shoot for the stars, because everything and anything is possible. And remember, like I always tell everyone, you don't need anyone, you may want them, but you don't need them. So that's kind of how
I feel that I feel that most successful women have somebody in their life. It doesn't have to be a romantic relationship. It can be their family member or something, but somebody who told them that they're not going to make it. And that is just like a fire that keeps you pushing, going more and more. And at the end of the day, like that was the motivation. And I feel like this entire episode is pretty much about taking rejection and transferring it into a positive and just being motivated by rejection. And I think that's so interesting. So I have a question when it comes to your personal and professional life. When you said like when you were working for a client, you were working on a piece for about 2 weeks. Are you working like nonstop? How does that mesh with your personal life? Or like how does that look like?
Okay. So obviously, you're an artist. So like how I'm an artist. So how it works is, not every day I wake up and I'm like, oh, I'm so inspired to paint. I do have my days that I've always told myself that I need to be true to myself, that if I'm not feeling inspired that specific Monday, it's okay. Take a break. I meditate a lot. So, I would meditate. And I'm like, let me come back to myself, take a few minutes, then I'll get into the studio. And then that's when I start creating. I never touch a canvas if I'm not inspired. And maybe the client sees it like a perfect piece, but in my eyes, I'm like, no, it's not perfect. It can get very tricky and difficult. Like I said, like I don't paint every single day, only the days that I'm inspired. So I'll do like media content and I'll do other things, other than actually touching a canvas. I like to paint at night. That's when I'm really inspired. Not a lot of people know this. That's when I'm most inspired. And sometimes, like my boyfriend would be like, hey babe, like, are you coming home? He's great. He's very supportive. I'm very thankful that I have him in my life, but you need a partner that's going to be supportive, and he's okay with me painting on a Saturday night till 2, 3 a.m., going to work events. And I think that's very important to have a partner that's just going to, accept you and your schedule. He has a 9 to 5. So sometimes he gets out of the office a little bit later, and, communication. But having Cuban family can be a little difficult, Oh, we got to cut the pork on Saturday and your grandma's going to be here and you're painting. And I'm like, so it's that. Oh I believe that would be probably like the most difficult, trying to balance like family and work. Cause some, they're Cuban. They don't understand. They're like, what do you mean you're painting on a Saturday? I was like, yes, you pay my bills. I'm painting. Yeah. So, but balancing work and personal life can get tricky. I try to mix them at times. Like I'll tell my boyfriend, come with me to like this work event, and but yeah, it can definitely get tricky. But you just got to stay focused.
I mean, whenever you're running a business, whatever type of business you have, you're, as you said in the beginning, like you're thinking about this 24/7. This is your entire life and you're so passionate about it. And sometimes when people even ask me how people, approach me and they're like, you're so consistent, you're so motivated, I'm so inspired by you. Like, how do you do all of that? I'm like, this is the only thing I think about. I wake up and I think about my content. I go to sleep. I dream about my content. And for some people, they might say, oh, it's just, you're just posting videos or something. I mean, people always.
No, you put in the work.
Yeah. But people don't understand that this is like truly what I truly, truly want to do. And I feel like when you find that something that really fires you up and makes you so happy that nothing else really matters. And what I like when you mentioned that your family, sometimes call like, how can you paint on a Saturday and stuff? People who don't feel that same passion about their work, for example, not to say anything negative about, other people's work, but like if you don't feel so passionate about your career, you're not going to understand why I don't want to go hang out on a Friday and get drunk and fall asleep the entire Saturday. Like when I didn't feel motivated, when I didn't really have that something that was making me happy, I was hanging out with everyone and anyone, and I was just wasting my energy on all these things that didn't really matter. But now I would rather keep that energy for me and for my business, so I can literally be focused and sit and just like do the work, because sometimes also you're gonna do things that you don't want to do. Like I actually want to ask you about your what is the most annoying part you would say when it comes to not just being an artist, but when it comes to being a business owner? For me, I don't like sitting on my computer, sending emails, coordinating. Like, I don't like doing that logistical kind of technical part, I would say. Editing videos and stuff, like I can do that, but it's so time consuming. So I'm wondering for you, what is like something that if you can totally remove that from your business, what would that something be?
Oh my gosh. The process of doing your hair and makeup and going to an event, and it's not like a great event, you know? And just, I feel, believe it or not, I'm more like of a homebody, even though it doesn't seem like it. I love being in my studio, in my cozy corner. Like that's my home, right? Actually getting, like, for example, like one of my friends would be like, oh, come with me to this event. It's going to be amazing. Every event is amazing, right? So, you know, doing your hair, your makeup, going over there, and they're like, and then you're like, oh, great. This is not what I expected. I'm going to get no business out of this. But it sucks because you want to go into everything and anything, right, with a positive mindset. But then if you're like at a rave, you know, you're not going to get like this. I don't know, like, you know, it depends. So I feel like, obviously I'm not going to go to rave, but it's just like the, you know, going to that event and then you get there, you had high expectations, I guess. And then realizing, okay, maybe this isn't like the kind of like the crowd that I thought it was going to be. And then you get a little bumped out. So your energy goes low, but I still try to stay positive. And then you're like, okay, well, I'm just going to have a drink, you know? So I think that's the most like annoying part of my business. Cause like you have to go out there, you have to network. You're not going to do everything and get every client through online. You know, you have to meet people. So I would say that, and then maybe driving to the client's house, because I add in the price delivery and installation included, right? And sometimes I'm like such in a rush that I assume they're in Miami and they're like, oh, we live in Plantation, like an hour and something minutes away. And I'm like, yay. So, so I would say that's the most annoying part, but then I love it because I get there, I see their reaction and, you know, it's worth it. You know, it's meeting the client and it's worth it. It's exciting.
Is there something you're excited about for this year? Is there any plans that you want to share with us right now?
Honestly, I've been working on a few festivals that I want to do. I want to showcase at more festivals. I'm thinking also in New York. So I've been looking to showcase some of my paintings in New York, be a little more worldwide, because in Miami, I have a lot of clientele in Miami and I just want to make it more like worldwide. So I want to travel more and do more art festivals worldwide. So that's something that I'm looking for this year. More exciting, different.
How can an artist get into a gallery? What is the process in getting into a gallery and like showcasing your work or something like that?
Yeah, so you would reach out to the gallery, obviously have like a media portfolio of all your work. Then you would apply. Every gallery is different. So there's different process and steps, but you would apply. Once you get approved, then that's it. You start displaying your art on a specific day when they have that event. So it can be tricky. You have to get approved, apply, approve, and that's it. Once you're approved, then you're in.
So you find a gallery, find a gallery you want to showcase your work in, you find a contact and you're like, hey, I'm an artist. I would love to share my work in your gallery. And then you go through the process. If they approve, they're not approved, and then that's
right. And then you would give some galleries, you have to give them like a percentage if they sell the painting. Let's say your painting was to sell for, I don't know, 5K. You have to give them, maybe it depends on like how their gallery, you know, their percentage. Some galleries are like, no, we just want to display it, which is very rare. But usually a lot of galleries want a percentage off the painting, like once it sells. So that's like the process.
My darling Elsie, this was wonderful. And I am so grateful that you were on my podcast. And I hope that all of our artists and entrepreneurs listening are going to get inspired by this conversation. And
definitely,
is there anything else that you want to share as like a final wrap, like final thought or something?
I would say that consistency is key. Never give up on something that you want so bad. eat, sleep, dream of your passion. Just follow your passion. I think it's really important that if you're very dedicated to something, don't let anything or anyone stop you from wanting this, because anything and everything is possible. So that's something that, it's really important. I always go by that. Find your passion and like follow it. Definitely.
Please share your Instagram, socials, all that, where they can follow you. I'm obviously going to put everything in the show notes, but just tell us your handles and all that.
Yeah. So my Instagram handle is art by Chirino. And I
love it. And I love pronouncing it. I'm just going to call you Chirino from now on.
Chirino. Yeah, I love it. But yeah, Art by Chirino, that's mainly where you can find me. I'm currently in the process of rebranding my whole website. It's going to be live next week, which is also going to be like Art by Chirino. So yeah, Art by Chirino.
Okay.
No, I actually want to say a funny story, which I want to
tell me.
I want everyone to know because it was such an awesome. Do you remember when we went to this event to see Eileen in her show? Yeah. And we were just sitting in the front, and one of the girls was like taking photos of your head behind you. Yeah. And it was so motivating. And it was the cutest thing ever, guys. I swear this was awesome. She ran. We were there actually to watch, you know what I'm talking about. Yeah, we were with Kat, and she came up to, she's like, oh my God, you're Coco. Oh my God, I want to take a photo with you. It was the cutest thing. So I love that. And that was awesome. I had to share that. No, I had to share that. I had to put you on blast.
I love when my followers come and say hi. I think that's my favorite part of like my work. I think, honestly, when somebody comes to me and they tell me you literally changed my life, like that's what makes my heart jump.
Yeah. So many women look up to you, and I think that you're doing an awesome job out there. You're very motivating. A lot of women look up to you, your words, your looks, your style. I think that you are very motivating. You're beautiful. You're talented. So, it's an honor to be on your podcast. Aww. I wanted you to know that.
Thank you so much. This was such a wonderful way to end this conversation. And yeah, I think we need to invite our Boujee besties to leave a 5-star rating and review if they enjoyed this conversation. And I'm pretty sure they will, because Absolutely. I love your energy and your vibe and all that. So thank you everybody for listening, and I'll see you in the next episode.
Thank you, friend. Bye, guys.